Welcome. Another episode, Mitten State Sports Corner. I am Brett with one T, here with my counterpart, Brett with two T's.
How's it going, guys?
And we've got a special guest on the phone here, John White from the infamous White House. Not the real White House, folks, but the White House of Genesee County. Welcome, John.
Thanks, fellas. Appreciate you having me on.
Anytime. So John is a very big sports fan. I actually worked with John here, several years ago now. It's crazy it's been that long. But, you don't run into many people who have a better character and, just moral compass than John does. And so I've always, really appreciated just being friends with him in general. And obviously being a big sports fan, that helps. What is a big knock, though, is he's a State fan. I'm not sure how that happened.
I was going to say, you said he's a good character, but he's a State fan. Are you sure
I know,
about that statement?
it's hard to figure out how that works. But, that's how it works sometimes, maybe he got poor guidance. I mean, what happened, John? How'd this happen?
I mean, how can you be from the Flint area and not be a fan of Michigan State?
You're a Flintstone fan, aren't you?
Yeah.
I'm a Flintstone fan. That is my. I'm going to date myself a little bit, but that is my era. I went, all those guys were in high school, like when I was a junior and senior in high school. So watching, that style, that level of play at a high school game, I mean, tickets were they'd be sold out by lunchtime. You couldn't go to a game. You couldn't go to a game, just randomly show up. You had to buy tickets at lunch. We were giving money to people's parents to go get them to have us get tickets so we could go watch the game.
Yeah, and then that's when you probably had all this kid took my lunch money to go buy a ticket. Now all of a sudden you got no lunch and no ticket. Now you're double screwed. Man, I can't imagine those times.
I just want to point at something here. He says, date himself, but we're talking back in like the late 90s. It's crazy we're at that point where we're saying late 90s and we're dating ourselves.
I know it. Where does the time go? We're in our 30s. Well, I don't know. You're 29, right?
Yeah.
You're spring chicken.
I'll be 30 this upcoming
Lord
year.
have mercy.
People say 30 years ago, and my head instantly goes 1970. 30 years ago, that's 1994.
I know. I don't even want to think about that. It's unbelievable. Yeah. So tell us, John. I mean, what's your background as far as sports goes? Are you mostly basketball? Do you like other sports too, or just general all around? What's your go-to?
Yeah, so I mean, college basketball, that's definitely my number one thing, especially in season.
Mm-hmm.
I love to watch. I mean, not just Michigan State. I mean, I do love Michigan State basketball, but just any top 25 game, you're going to get good basketball. I mean, they actually play good, solid defense.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get a solid team effort, not just all-star versus all-star. To me, the college basketball it's hard, especially in the tournament season. It's hard to beat a good tournament basketball game.
I agree.
I mean, I follow the Red Wings. I follow the Lions, the Tigers. I love baseball. It's just that the season is so long. So in the springtime, I get hype about it. Midsummer, I get real busy and my attention span fades from it. And then usually in the fall, I kind of try to see, hey, where did we finish?
Yep.
And I do kind of pick them back up again.
Mm-hmm. I think all baseball fans are that way, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
There's no way you can stay that locked in for 162 regular season games and then go, guess what, friends? Got another 20 to 30 playoff games if you want to win it all. So let's play 200 games. And then you're going to go and play summer ball. And then you're going to go play in the Guatemalan League. And then you're going to go, spring training which is like feels like is 10 years long. I mean, this is crazy. Like, no wonder these guys need Tommy John surgery every other year. It's unbelievable. They just don't ever give them a break.
You look at the length of season, as far as hockey versus football versus baseball, like it's unmatched. The amount of time they spend in season is unreal.
It's unfair, quite frankly. I don't know.
And football's looking to expand more games again. They upped it to one more game, and now I think they're looking to do one or two more. I thought I read something like that.
But I think they'd be doing it at the expense of preseason, correct?
I hope so.
Me too.
We did talk about that. Preseason's stupid on all levels.
It really is. It's a way to dabble another couple games in front of the fans, charge them a few bucks, but then go, it doesn't count. All the rookies played. Hope you didn't want to see anybody play that is actually going to play this season. Like, it's crazy. I don't know. There's some benefit to it, but not what you would expect. And I don't think what the intent was when they first started doing that. It's lost so much luster. I mean, I would tell you that as a fan, I would maybe watch the last preseason game before the regular season game, if it's even televised, first of all.
Yeah.
And That's because it's closest to the season. You're like, maybe some of the starters are going to play. Let's get a glimpse of what the team looks like. But other than that, I am disinterested in preseason football.
Preseason, just in
It's
general.
it's hard to even get like a pulse on what your team is really going to look like because none of the starters are playing.
Yeah.
None of them.
Right.
Let us not forget Lions 4-0 in the preseason 2008 to go 0-16 the regular season.
Right.
Let us not forget that.
It means nothing.
The
means absolutely
biggest like blue ball preseason we've ever seen, probably.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
other thing too, I think if you start extending the NFL season, I think there's no way that you extend it and you don't see teams start asking for another bye week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
They
if
got
you,
to.
I mean, because I mean, they're what are they right now? They're what 17 games in a season, 18 games in a season,
17.
Yep.
not counting preseason. You know,
Yeah.
so it's like, I mean, you got a bye week. You know, week 4, week 5. Like, you got to go 3 months without a break.
Yeah, you're gonna have to dapple one in there, like in between week 12 and 14. You would think.
Right.
Kind of split it up that way. That's a good point.
Yeah.
That another bye week would have to be a thing.
Well, they're doing it in college football with the conference realignments now. They've got multiple bye weeks with all the travel. First of all, they got, the conferences are ridiculous, but, I do agree with giving them an extra week off just for that particular reason. I don't know. The whole conference thing's interesting, but nevertheless, that's what we've got. So as fans, we're going to deal with it because we have no say anyway. So, John, we're getting into some college basketball for a moment here. Top 25 has been released on ESPN. It wasn't a today thing, but it was yesterday. It looks like there was a little article here, and number 1 preseason team, Kansas.
No surprise.
What do you think?
I'm not shocked.
Hunter Dickinson feels like playing his 12th season. It feels like in college basketball now, but here he is.
Yeah, I'm not shocked by that at all.
No.
You look at any college player that played. You look at COVID, like prior to COVID, and they're still playing college sports. It's been a long time now. That's 5+ years now, if you really think about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't disagree with the free year from COVID, right? Like whatever. And a redshirt year, I guess. I can understand both sides. After that, zero reason you need to be in college for like a decade. That's ridiculous. And there was something that was posted earlier on a I forget what page it was. They were talking about that Miami tight end, right?
Well, it was him,
right?
but the Utah quarterback, who's
Cam
in his
Rising.
8th year,
He's going to come
he
back
got
for a 9th year.
granted another medical redshirt year for next year. Like, how is that possible?
He's older than Trey Edmonds for the Chicago Bears. He's a linebacker. He's had 7 years in the league. Cam Rising's older than him.
Like, how is this
Come
a
on.
thing? How are they
It's
keep
ridiculous.
allowing this? They got to like just cut ties at this point.
Well, it's just becoming an extension of the NFL now. Really, if you think about it, it's like having a farm team. Like I don't know. It's just
Well, they get paid more in college.
yes, they do. But we got off topic. So Kansas number 1, Alabama number 2, UConn 3, Houston 4, Iowa State 5. Anything you guys would change?
Now, I think, I mean, anytime you see, I mean, UConn,
Defending champs.
Kansas, Kentucky, UNC, like all those guys, I mean, the lineage for their program, I mean, they could, I mean, don't get me wrong, they recruit well.
Yeah.
But, like, anytime they're poised to have a top 5 season. To see Kansas and UConn in the top, top 5, Duke's not far, UNC's in the top 10, they're right there too. Yeah. The one that in the top, and I know you're kind of sliding here, I might be jumping in front of you, but Gonzaga is 6 was kind of I'm glad to see it. I feel like they're finally starting to get a little bit of respect, a little bit of, eye openers. They're saying, hey, this program is actually coming together, because for the last 3, 4, 5 years, they were underdogs in the tournament, and every year they're going rounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they've had a good team. Few has really done a good job there. But I don't know that they're underrated. I mean, I think that they've gotten a lot of attention the last 3, 4 years because again, they've played very well. And again, I'd almost say that there was a couple times where you could feel like they may have underperformed. And what was it? Maybe 21. I'm not. It's not right in front of me. Maybe 21, where they had that run where I didn't think they were going to get beat at all. And they had Timmy, right? They had God, who else they had? They got a couple guys that are now pros, and so I definitely say that they're. I guess I would say that they're right where I would expect them to be. Would be my opinion on that. Now,
Yeah, like I said, to
Yeah.
see them at 6 makes me happy.
yes,
It makes me feel like they're finally getting the credit they deserve. That program's been working hard for a lot of years.
hmm
You know,
yeah, and Duke at
so,
7,
so to finally
right? So
see them at 6, like they should. I feel good about that.
The conference they play in, I think, definitely doesn't help them.
No, not at all.
But the one thing that I noticed in the top 5, scroll back up real quick,
mhm.
is Alabama at 3 or 2.
Excuse me, 2.
And that's a team that's been kind of up at the top the last few years. And obviously, Alabama's a football school. But I've seen Alabama up there the last 3 or 4 years that they have been a perennial kind of powerhouse team. So where the hell did those guys come from is the real question.
Yeah, but they were good last year.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
like,
they were
they've been
definitely
good
good
for a few years
Yeah.
now. It's just kind of one of those, like, where did these guys come from?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, they've recruited football players for what feels like 50 years now really well. But at the end of the day, those guys are athletes, and a lot of them play multiple sports. And it doesn't surprise me. Like if you're going to go be a basketball player at any school of your choice, right? Like you're going to look at your UConns, your Dukes, most likely, right? You're going to look at those blue blood programs, Kansas. But, okay, so say those guys are out at Anya, right? Or they're like, yeah, we want you, but like we're not pushing too hard. You're not feeling the love. Why not Alabama? I mean, really? Because, you're going to go to a school that's got a ton of national attention for their football team. So naturally, just naturally alone, their basketball team, when they're on, it's like, oh, it's Alabama. They don't know anything about it. People are going to assume they're good at basketball or good at football or good at basketball to a degree. Again, I'm not saying that's an educated decision, but like it almost feels like it has its natural pull already, and so I feel like that helps contribute to the level of talent that they can bring onto the court, which obviously has translated to wins. I mean, they are number 2. Nothing wrong with that. It feels like whatever they're doing it well. Interesting enough, they play Houston November 26th. It's a pretty big early season game. Who do you guys think is going to take that one? Just kind of what you know now. Anything? Did you die? Where'd you go?
I mean, if I had to guess, I would say. I'm going to go Houston.
Okay.
That would be my guess behind it. But I mean, I know I feel like Houston lately, the last couple of years, has really kind of been coming on. But I mean, like you said, Alabama's right there too. It should be a good game, especially early season matchup.
Yeah.
I love that college basketball does do like a lot of top 10 matchups in the first couple of
Early.
weeks.
Yes, thank God.
I love that they do that.
And it's cool because they do them on a lot of times they're at neutral sites and they're awesome.
Yeah.
Like I want to say it was State that played on that aircraft.
I was
carrier
just
a
about
couple
to bring
years
that up.
ago.
That was one of my favorite
Literally.
first games to watch. I think they played North Carolina or one of the ACC teams on an
remember who it
aircraft
was.
carrier.
That was awesome.
Yeah, I remember that was a wild game to watch. I mean, could you imagine? I don't know if you guys have ever been like on an aircraft carrier or even anywhere near them. Like, it is so freaking loud and windy. The noise, like not saying that the arenas aren't loud, but it totally changes your environment, how you communicate with each other.
Yeah, and what a venue. I mean, can you imagine sitting in the what you would call the situation room where all the decision makers are and the schedules? Like, I think we should go put a couple teams on a boat. Let's film it. Like, that's awesome. But at the same time, like, very interesting, So, but it really turned out awesome. Like, the whole venue was cool as hell. Like, it was just, again, may not have been the team that I per se wanted to watch, but we talked about this before. As much as a Michigan fan we are, like, we don't hate to see State on TV or anything. Like, I'm going to vote for State in that game, but I'm not going to vote for State when they play us. Like, that's just how it goes. We're Michigan fans in general, the state of Michigan, right? So, I don't hate seeing State play. I've talked about this with you, John, plenty of times. I'm happy to see them all. I like to see everybody eat except for when they're at my table in that game. So that's just how it goes. But, yeah, so, it's just very interesting on that. Like, you got, North Carolina, number 9, Arizona rounds out the top 10, Auburn, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Purdue, and Creighton are the next 5. That's 10 through 15. It'll be 11 through 15.
Where's Michigan State at?
Michigan State is not in the opening 25.
That's surprising. Considering they have one of the best recruiting classes damn near every year.
Yeah.
So that's pretty surprising.
I would say that they've not been as strong on court as they maybe were in years past. So maybe that has a little to do with that. But they're still they're a very desirable school. for basketball. So I'm a little surprised.
You would think their name alone would get them in top 25.
My opinion on it is the ever since the NIL stuff happened, that's when you started to see the biggest change in recruiting.
Oh,
because
yeah, for sure.
the way in which Tom Izzo recruits is not NIL
Friendly.
Like it's not. It doesn't benefit him.
Mm-hmm.
Like for him, and the other thing too. Like when you compare like Michigan State compared to like a UNC or a Duke or Kentucky, like a lot of those schools, they're okay with a one and done or a two and done. Like Tom Izzo, when he's recruiting you, is like, no. If I'm gonna take you on, I want you for all 4 years.
Yeah, I want to develop you.
That turns a lot of athletes away. I'm sure of it, because a lot of them want to be in the NBA by 20. I mean, that's just facts. I don't agree with that. To be honest with you, I think they need some more. A lot of times, those guys go to the league, from a freshman year or sophomore year, and like it's very clear they get to the NBA and they needed more time, whether it be in college or they need more time in the G League now. But like, why wouldn't you stay in college and do your junior and senior year? I mean, now you're a star. You're probably paid more than you are, definitely paid more than you are as a rookie or a G League player. And I know that is changing now compared to where it was, like as far as players staying. But it's just, I don't know. I've never been a big fan of the one and dones, to be honest with you. I really don't like it. I think it's bad for the sport. I really do. I think it's, how do you well, if you go from a marketing standpoint, but again, like a lot of these athletes, it's a 1%er of guys that are going to either skip college altogether or play 1 year, maybe 2, and then go and dominate the NBA. It's not that common. And so for the 98% of everybody else, why? Like, why would you leave that situation? I just don't get it.
That's one thing I was going to ask is, like, does the NIL, is it as big in college basketball as it is in football? Because you don't really hear about it too much in basketball. All you hear about is all the football NIL.
Yeah.
You don't really hear too much about basketball.
Well,
I think. Go ahead.
So I was going to say Dusty May came on here, not on here with us. That'd be great. But recently went on to the U of M podcast and talked about, how, with him being hired kind of later in the cycle, if you will, to an extent, that he basically in his interview process, that was a big portion of that conversation was, all right, great. The word on the street is Michigan doesn't pay. And his response was essentially that I had all the resources I needed to get who I wanted. Now, think about for a second, depending on the coach, your targets are different. Everybody's targets are different. So, if you're targeting, I would argue Michigan and Michigan State both that recruit similar players to an extent. Like they're not 5 stars typically. They can pull them every now and then, but typically like you're going for guys that might be a 3 or 4 and develop them and make them great. So those guys might not be as expensive, right? But the 5 stars are going to cost you a ton of money out of the gate. And it's about who you're targeting. So, I mean, if you need $10 million to go get 6 or 7 5 stars, or you need $3 million to go and fill out your roster with a bunch of other guys, like, to me, the resources are probably there either way, but, like, yeah, it's probably a little easier to get those $3 million worth of resources versus the 10. And so you could be, quote-unquote, satisfied or have the resources that you need in either situation, but doesn't mean they're equal. You know what I mean? And so I guess I'd be curious to hear you guys' opinion on that.
Well, I think one of the big things, for Michigan, it was extremely relevant in the last 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Mm-hmm. I mean, when you had Barstool Sports, I think it's the owner, Dave Portnoy, come on, and he was like, I'll do whatever it takes to get us a quarterback here in Michigan.
Well,
how much is it going to cost me?
I wish he would have done it this year. My God.
Do you know what I mean? Like, he's like, I don't care how much it's going to cost me. Mm-hmm. I want a quarterback here in Michigan.
Yeah.
Like, he personally is willing to spend the money to make it so that it happens. Yep. Like, so I think, to your point there, like, I do think quite often it's, that they have whatever they need as far as disposal, but like, are they going hard after those guys,
Yeah. I think a lot of it too, like you said, has to do with who's on the other side writing the checks. I can imagine there are several Portnoys out there for Michigan, several of them for State, and they're all silent. Almost every one of them is silent. Not many people are going to come out and say, I'm giving you $3 million for a quarterback. That's a little ballsy. But, I think I think
If
they're
the
there.
boosters came asking for a check, you wouldn't hesitate to reach for that checkbook and sign your name to it. You know,
You damn right. You damn right. That's for sure. And so I think yeah, it's I would say to Brett's question, I would say it's definitely. I think it's there. I think it's maybe a little quieter than football. And think about football is just a hell of a lot more expensive. It just is in general. There's considerably more players, athletes, staff, just everything's more expensive, but it generates significantly more revenue. That's just the facts. So it's kind of how that works. So I think it's definitely there if needed, But personally, I mean, we've talked about this too. I think college basketball is one of my favorite sports to watch in certain situations. Now, granted, we're hockey players through and through. Like that's going to be number one. To be honest, is never going to leave. Football for me is right there. College basketball is right after that. And I think for anything more than the level of effort that those kids display, and the energy level, enthusiasm, and and the grind, and like the defense, right? We talked about that, is unmatched. You get to the NBA, and like I said, nobody plays defense. It's a big difference, and so it's definitely a lot more entertaining. You guys feel the same or different?
I think at Michigan State, when you hear some of the backstories behind those kids, like where they came from, the struggles they've been through. I mean, like in the last couple of years, I mean, literally the one kid, like his brother died that day. And he's like, no, I'm going to go play this game because I don't want to let my brothers down. Dude's playing in an NCAA game on the same day his brother was killed. Like, he's like, no, this one's for him. Like, the level of heart and commitment that they have to not only each other, but to the program is, I mean, like you said, it's unreal.
Well, that's just crazy, to be honest. And again, I'm not saying poor on him by any stretch, but like it's just that's a lot. That's a lot of emotion, man. And so, I mean, you got guys sitting out NBA games for cramps.
Yeah, the effort level at the NBA is just not there.
It's embarrassing, quite frankly. It's all glitz and glam and money. Like it's just, I don't know. It's changed so much. Like nowhere near the days of, the bad boys of Detroit or
mid-2000s going to work.
Yeah, or the Bulls or like any of those. Like those guys would literally elbow you right in the chops and take the ball. Like I love it. I'm not saying he needs to be quite that aggressive, but like
show something.
Yeah, this stuff is nowadays it's for sissies. Like it's so hard to watch.
All it looks like is literally just fast break, fast break, fast break, fast break. Where there's you maybe got one guy back and he takes a half-ass jump at the ball to contest, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's really all it looks like.
I don't know. It's lost a lot of lust for me. I tell you what. Like,
a lot of guys don't even try to get a hand in the face when they pull up for a jump shot.
Yeah.
That's the one that annoys the shit out of me the most.
And poking in here, looking at state schedule, the third game of the season, they got number 1 Kansas. Ouch. What is that? That's a tough one. They do have a couple of what I would hope would be pretty cupcake games.
Other than that, their non-conference doesn't look horrible.
Monmouth, Niagara, then Kansas. So that's a doozer. Bowling Green, Samford, Colorado, at Minnesota to start Big Ten play. Then Nebraska, Oakland, FAU, Western Michigan, and then you get into the heavy, Big Ten schedule for the second half. But like, they don't play Michigan until February 21st. Interesting. And the last game of the season for if Michigan State is against Michigan in East Lansing. So I know, but it's like I think they've got a pretty good chance to start the year pretty well. It's obviously aside from the Kansas game, but even if you lose that game, as long as you lose it close, it's not going to hurt you at all. So I mean, God forbid. I mean, you look at State last year, 20-15, 10-10 in the conference. Michigan, 8-24, 3-17 in the conference. Like, good grief, Juwan Howard. Thank you, but goodbye.
Embarrassing.
It is embarrassing. It's terrible.
Funny thing about that Michigan State game, it doesn't matter. They could both have, lost every game the whole season, and they're going to show up for that game. Like, that's the one game on their season that neither team wants to lose.
Yeah. Well, and the football team ain't gonna be no different.
I was gonna say that's one thing with football too, is that in light of recent years, Michigan State hasn't had the best teams, but they still, it seems like always in that Michigan game is when they go have their best game of the season.
Except for last year. Last year was bad.
Aside from last year. But I'm looking back at that 2017 season when Michigan State wasn't the best and they went into the big house and upset Michigan.
Yeah.
And then in the weird COVID year, did the same thing.
Even on years when you have it to where, there'll be years where Michigan's ranked in the top 5,
Yep.
and Michigan State's not ranked, or vice versa. Where it's Michigan State's ranked, number 1, number 2, and Michigan's, towards the bottom, and yet they show up and it looks like you got number 1 seed playing number 2 seed. It's like, holy cow! Like, where did this come from?
And you won't see that in the NBA typically. I'm not saying you can't get upsets, but like you don't see that, right? You don't see the rivalry, the bad blood. You don't see the grit, the heart. There's just none of those things really come to the forefront. And it's
They love to talk shit to each other, but do nothing about it. All they do is just talk.
yes, yeah. I don't really have as much respect for them as I do college basketball players, to be totally honest with you. I think they work harder, personally. So I guess obviously we did a little basketball talk for a second. Now, Tigers' run's all done in baseball.
Hell of a season.
Yep, hell of a season. They made an absolute
They made
unprecedented.
it so much fun.
Yeah, and obviously that it didn't end the way you hoped, and really kind of stunk to be up 2-1 there and lose both. But this team, I would say, outperformed expectations by a mile. They've still got some work to do on the roster. They need some pitchers. For God's sakes, you can't run with Skubal and then like a cluster forever. I mean, it's not going to work. A lot of these guys are not going to have the same seasons. It's unrealistic to expect the bullpen to be exactly the same. Is there anything that stood out to you, maybe one thing from each of you that stood out from this past season for the Detroit Tigers?
The effort level came back. It seems like every game they went in with a lot of confidence of like, hey, we're going to go out, we're going to beat your ass.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's something you haven't seen from the Tigers since around 2013 when they were a perennial playoff team.
Yeah.
So it was cool to see that fight again in them.
Yep.
And I would love to see that carry over into next year with a little momentum.
Mm-hmm. How about you, John?
I think the biggest thing for me is there's a lot of young, raw talent on the Tigers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you look back, and one of the things I was listening to on a different sports channel, and they had said, I think 14 or 16 guys on the active roster had all played through the Whitecaps.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
like, not only are they, within like the last like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So, like, we're not going out and just spending the cheese and buying top talent to bring him in to try to make a run. Like, we're building a dynasty type team. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
half the guys on the team, even if they won, are old enough to go out to drink.
Yeah.
Saw a thing that was like 3 years ago. Some of these guys, they were pitching in a high school like conference championship. Now here they are in the majors on the biggest stage in baseball, playing the biggest game of their life. That to me is just mind blowing.
Well, they brought Jackson Jobe, right? Like in a freaking playoff situation, essentially. I mean, they put him up, right before the season ended, but like
He had one game.
he had one game, and then he's out in a playoff game. Like this kid's 19, 20 years old, something like that. Like he's a spring chicken. And my thing that I think for me personally that stood out from this season was the organizational shift. And I say that because a lot of the players you see on the field today are Al Avila players. That's a fact. Nobody can deny that, right?
But giving them the chance to play.
Exactly. Giving them the damn chance to play. Love him, hate him, whatever your thoughts are on Avila. A lot of these guys he handpicked and drafted. That's great. But it does no good for them to sit on the farm and not play and block them with one-year deals all the time. Like this team got so much better when they got rid of the veterans.
Right.
And they weren't bad for the team necessarily, but they block these young, energetic, like you said, these timely, clutch hitting. The effort level went up substantially. And Hinch has been a good manager for several years. He just, to be honest with you, in Detroit had zero talent to work with. And the whole thing, with Houston and stuff, like it kind of took some time to get over, I think. But the philosophical changes that you saw in the organization about letting the kids play, right when Scott Harris took off is not long after you're signing Colt Keith to a big fat deal and the kid hasn't played a single game for you. It's like, all right, dude, I'm ready to change things up here in Detroit, and he has, and I'm very happy to see that, and I look forward to what this team can do next season. I think, with a couple of pitchers, again, you go out maybe get 2 pitchers. They don't have to be front end Garrett Cole. They don't have to be anybody like that. You don't need anything that crazy. You don't need Skubal type guys, but you do need solid 2, 3, 4s, something like that. And so, go out and get a couple guys there, and a couple of right-handed bats would be great. And do not let Javi Baez play another game for this team, for God's sakes.
Yeah, if I see Javi Baez in the lineup next year, I did see they did say something about that he is part of the mold of what they're trying to do.
Well,
But I really
scary.
hope that means like he's going to be put in like a backup role.
I really hope that means we owe him $72 million and we really don't know what else to say. I think that's probably more what it means than
Hopefully,
anything
yeah,
because
'cause-
I don't know how you can even justify playing him.
Exactly. You look at what the roster did after he went out. Yeah, I mean, how can you justify him playing anymore?
The team got better without him. It's just a fact.
Yes.
You can't argue it.
One of the things that too is, I mean, with all that the young guys, you don't have the experience to get down morale wise. Like they went out there, they were just playing ball. They were getting paid to play ball and they were having fun.
Yeah.
And whether they were losing, whether they were winning, they string a couple wins together. Like they're having a good time.
Yep.
And I don't think that they're necessarily in August. I don't think they were thinking about October.
No, not at all.
They were looking at the next game or next series.
Yeah.
And
they're very good.
I don't think they had anybody really there veteran wise to make it a toxic clubhouse, to make it toxic to where you're always looking ahead or always looking back. It's one of those like, no, we're looking at today. We're going to play today and then we'll reevaluate it tomorrow.
Well,
And I think Hinge is the one, driving that too.
Well, and you think about how many times did they come back and win a game in the 8th or ninth inning, too. I mean, like, that team had 0 quit. And, again, a lot of that is the youth, right? Like, I think Javi Baez is a cloud over this organization. I'm just going to say it. I think it was a bad signing when it happened. To me, it felt like, well, we missed out on our first 2 options. Let's go sign a shortstop for the big money because everybody's talking to the media like we have to do it. Everybody knows we need a shortstop. We have the cap. And they just went out and did it and literally signed the worst one. He was a strikeout king in Chicago. He was an all-or-nothing hitter there, but at least he had somewhat of an average or would at least hit home runs. He's done none of that here. His defense was the best attribute, and that's now gone.
Yeah, that's
so it's
horrible.
like, what does he bring? He doesn't bring anything. Like don't put him on the field. Like you're literally taking away somebody's spot that's considerably more deserving, and just that to me would almost set this team backwards from what they accomplished this season. So go ahead.
That's one of those things too, where you see the kid that is deserving, and he gets that base hit or he gets that out. Like not only does that motivate him, but like that motivates all the guys around him.
Yeah.
It's like that he's been playing his tail off. Now he's showing us why he's out here today. The whole team gets amped up.
Yeah.
With that energy.
Well, I mean, how many times did Parker Meadows save a damn home run in the last couple of months of the season? Like,
oh, yeah.
Young players that bring energy, fire, work ethic, and good attitudes, it's contagious. But it's just as contagious as bad attitudes, poor work ethic, bad defense. So I mean, again, this thing it's always a constant teetering seesaw, right? Like, essentially, that's what it is, and it's very easy to have the wrong side of things and not even really know you have the wrong side of things. So I hope to God, for the Tigers' sake, for the fans' sake, they find a way to gracefully let Javi Baez run away, because that's pretty much what's needed at this point. But, curious to see what happens there.
We can kind of segue from that little topic of kind of letting Baez just kind of walk off into the sunset. We could kind of talk about that with the Red Wings as well, with their little situation they got going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Huso comes out in game 1 of the season, and the first period he was good, and then he sucked, and the Red Wings got smoked. And again, we've talked about it a few times. I don't really know what's wrong with Huso or what did happen to him. Nobody does.
I think he was hurt.
Well, obviously
he was
hurt.
Definitely hurt, and then he tried to come back.
That's an obvious statement.
And then he tried to come back, and he got hurt again.
Right.
And he saw everything kind of going the way it was, and I think his ego got hurt and his confidence got hurt, and now here we are, and it's gone.
Do you think, and I want to hear your guys' honest opinion on this, whether it's mainstreamed or not, do you think that teams say that players are hurt when they're performing badly to give them a break? Do you think it happens?
Yes.
All the time.
Okay.
There's no question.
Do you think that Javi Baez's exit at the end of this season, or Huso's exit at the end of last season, do you think those are 2 cases of that?
With Baez, I bet you, because what they say, he had a hip problem?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not uncommon amongst baseball players, but I don't remember them really saying that he had hip problems throughout the year, and that just randomly came about.
He's got a hitting problem.
Yeah, he just has an everything problem.
Yeah.
So I definitely think that that situation really kind of fits that mold a little bit there for sure.
That timeline, it matched up a little too conveniently. Like
Mm-hmm.
again, not complaining, right? It damn near worked out for us, but
Because you
it
saw
lined
it,
up
they
a
were
little
taking him
convenient.
out of games. They were taking like he would start the game, but then they would take him out after one at bat, two at bats, or in a couple innings. So
Mhm.
it would like the writing was kind of on the wall already.
Yeah, I think I think another thing too is I think that he, is you can tell he's beating himself up too. It's definitely affecting his play. Like, and again, Detroit fans, most fans are not real easy on you when you're not performing, especially when they're paying you that kind of money. So again, rightfully so. Like, you sign up for that as a pro athlete when you're going to get 30, 40, $50 million a year. You better be able to deal with it because a lot of us get that crap at work and we don't make anywhere close to that. So I'm here to tell you, you better suck it up and go out. If you can't swing the bat, then quit taking my money. Like that's kind of how I feel about it as a fan. But it's just it's tough to see a spot for him next season. But again, back to the Red Wing thing. I don't want to get too far off subject with him. Like Husso missed a lot of time last year. I expected him to come here with that healthy offseason. He played a really good preseason game before the season started, and then laid an egg in the first game. So it's like, yep, okay, well, we're back to the same situation. Then Talbot comes in, finishes strong, comes out and gets a shutout in game 2, and then they lost to the Rangers with Alex Lyon. So it's like they're going to have to figure this out pretty quick because, again, you can't afford to give away games as we saw last year. We literally lost the tiebreaker by the same amount of points. So, I mean, all of these games matter from game 1 to game 82.
Well, back to my point that I brought up before the Red Wing season started, and we were talking about the new additions and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole management and coaching staff, they're not too keen on Ville Husso and his situation.
Yeah.
I definitely do think he was hurt last year, but I think towards the end when they kept kind of saying it's like, oh, he's progressing, but he's still on IR, like nothing's happening. I bet you management's kind of just like, what in the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
So that's why they went out and got another goalie in free agency because they don't know what it's going to come with Husso. They had no idea.
Yeah.
So that's why they went and got Cam Talbot, and I told you that. They don't sign Cam Talbot unless they're like 1,000% okay with what Ville Husso is doing.
Well,
But them throwing him out as starter game 1 shocked me.
yeah, I agree. And what worries me is you can't rely on a 37-year-old Cam Talbot to take you through the season. So, if Husso's not the dude, he's not going to play well, then you better find somebody else. Because Lyon and Talbot, I don't know if that's the two. Like, Talbot's had some injuries, right? And again, nothing super, super serious, but he's had some. And, Lyon burned out last year. You got to have a third guy to come in and take a few starts, 10, 15 of them or whatever it is
Kosa.
now. Right. So you've got a pretty damn good one in Grand Rapids. So, I don't know. Come on, Stevie, let's get it together.
One of the things that Stevie has been really good about, we were just talking about it with the Tigers, like even when he has that stud player, he's done a really good job of not signing a whole lot of like bad for the team contracts.
Yeah. He doesn't have a ton of, what? He's actually, I'd almost argue that he sometimes doesn't have enough in there to like, there's times as a fan you're feeling like, man, like Sider and Raymond, this whole debacle that carried on late. You're like, man, just pay him, right? Just pay him. But he's like, nope, I'm doing the right thing in the organization. I'm going to be patient. If that means I save $1 million a year, promise it's going to come in handy. I trust his judgment, and it's worked out so far. We don't have a bunch of Kenny Holland bad deals that are looking bad from day one and bad 5 years later, trying to figure out how you can even play him like Javi Baez. So, I think kind of like to think that he's doing the right thing here, but it does make it a little nerve-wracking at times. But I am a little concerned with how they've started the season. I hope they can figure it out. But again, I'd rather them do it now than in March.
Their game last night against the Rangers, obviously the Rangers are one of the best teams in the league. But, and albeit, they played them well. They outshot the Rangers.
Yeah.
They played okay. They just ran in, obviously,
Ran into a
one of the
buzzsaw.
best goalies in the league.
Yeah.
So, and to Lalonde's comment after, he's like, I don't think that what they offered him is worth what he's should be getting paid after how he played tonight. Because we were watching the game when we were recording last night, and they were sticking with him. It's obviously, they just had a stone wall and net to go past.
Right.
And
Right.
it is what it is. Luckily, it is only 3 games in, but game 1 was obviously more than forgettable. Looked a little better game 2. They did come come away with the win, but they didn't look the best. But those are the games you want to win.
Yep.
And then,
in your guys' opinion, how many more years do you think Stevie has left before he? I mean, he's already in the. I'll call it the warm seat. I wouldn't say it's the hot seat yet, but before Detroit finally says, "Hey, this isn't working."
this year,
I don't agree.
personally, don't agree with that. But just how everything I read on all the pages and everything, I think this year, people will be calling for his head if they don't make the playoffs. Because apparently the playoffs is the end all be all, and that's all they want.
I think that's a big part of it. I think it depends on what happens this season. Like, they don't win the cup, but they make the playoffs. I think his seat remains at least where it's at, if not even cools a little, that people see progress. But, they missed the playoffs again this year. It's going to turn up pretty damn quick. I just think that Stevie's got too much respect in the league. He's provided us with a lot of good things. He's cleared our cap. I mean, our cap situation is so much better than it was before. Our level of talent so much better. Like, there's so many things you could point to. And at the end of the day, it's a results-driven business, so I do understand fans wanting success, playoff success, and competing. But as we spoke before, Brett, like, he needed at least 3 to 4 years to clear out all the garbage, and then he could start to build.
And even in those times, the team still progressed.
Right, and so it's hard to I guess it's really hard to understand how this year would be the get rid of Stevie if it doesn't work year. But I do think, in the next couple seasons, if they don't see like some serious competitive playoffs, I think fans are going to really start to come down on him, and it's not going to be good. But I don't think that'll happen.
I've said this like 5 or 6 times, but you look at the stats from literally day one of when he started to now, the team had, like, stats-wise, wins, points percentage, points, they've gotten better every single year.
Right.
Every single year. And we're talking with how the league is shaped up as far as, like, the conference alignments and everything, they are in the toughest division in hockey. Because this division has created, I think, 3 of the last 5 Stanley Cup champions, for God's sake. And then Boston was also in the finals a couple times in there.
Correct.
So you're talking, we had the hardest division in hockey, so we got to break through those 4 teams just to even get there. Mm-hmm. But so people just want to see on paper, they made the playoffs, but they don't look at the deeper part of it of
what it takes to get there.
Yeah,
exactly.
They don't realize how hard it actually is. Like, look at last year. They had 90-something points, and they still didn't get in.
Yeah, I mean, what more do you want? And I think it's fairly well documented that a lot of athletes will tell you the hardest thing to do as an athlete is to hit a baseball, right? Like, in general, that particular action. But the hardest sport to play is hockey. A lot of athletes from all across different sports will tell you that. It's hard. It's not an easy game. And, a matter of fact, my youngest son's learning how to play right now. And the one thing I told my wife, I said, you got to think. It's like, you go out and send your little one out to play soccer, lacrosse, or football. They can go run in the backyard. They can go do anything they want to, right? Like, essentially, as far as that sport relevant, and it's no big deal. But with hockey, you have to learn how to do all of those things and learn how to skate at the same time. So it's like, it's literally double the work, double the trouble, double the thought process. And it's not to take from other sports. It's not saying they're not hard. It's just, it's a hard sport. So it's like, to me, I see a lot of room for error across the board just because of that. But I think Detroit fans really understand mostly that Edmonton's trending in the right direction. I hope it sticks that way.
I mean, you look at it this way: their prospect pool is still one of the best in hockey, and they're coming. It's starting to show face that they're bringing these young guys in.
Right.
So, because we were talking about it, so we looked at the contract situation with some of these veterans. Mm-hmm. They're starting to age out here soon.
Right.
So that will be the time when it's time to bring those younger guys up because they spent their time in the farm system and they're ready to go, just like how the Tigers did it this year.
Yeah, exactly.
It's everything is starting to take shape now, and I don't think anyone looks at it that way because you look at the goalie situation specifically. Mm-hmm. So we have Cam Talbot for this year and next year. This is Alex Lyons last year. This is Ville Husso's last year,
right.
And this is Kosa's second full year in Grand Rapids.
Yep.
So now it's really starting to take shape that it's going to be his show starting next year, probably.
You're right.
I think the biggest thing when to your point there is when that starts to happen. Like, I mean, you're good for a long time. You're not good for a year. You're not good for 2 years until the cap catches up with you. And now you're upside down in all these contracts, and you don't have any money to pay your people to keep them until they either retire or leave. Like, you get all this young talent that's coming up, and they're on good contracts. They're good players, and they're not just good like all-stars by themselves, but the chemistry has been built. The team building has there. So that way, longer down the road, down the stretch, 2, 3, 4 years of playing with each other, that's where you see that continued success, year after year after year. And I think that's what we're turning the corner here and headed towards that.
And you look at the specific like main like prospects that everyone talks about that they have in the minors right now. So you got Marco Casper, who's shown out that shows that he's very, very close. Carter Mazer, you got Nate Danielson, and then you got Sandin Palika, and then now this new guy, Nygaard, and now you have Evanson's up for his first full year, and then that Johansson, who's in his 2 games, looked pretty damn good.
Yeah,
like it's starting to take shape, and that's what frustrates me when people are calling for Yzerman's head, saying he sucks and all this and all that. It's just like, dude, you realize he's still working out the kinks of making hopefully his draft picks work out. Like, we haven't really seen any of his draft picks on the ice. Actually, and 2 of them we have are now cornerstones of the franchise.
Yeah. Yzerman's done it. Listen, I'm going to leave it at this. Yzerman has done a great job, okay? Whether you like him, love him, doesn't matter to me. The situation he inherited was terrible, okay? The cap situation was terrible. And Holland paid people because he liked them. That's what happened.
He couldn't do anything as far as free agents go for like 2-3 years.
Right, and Yzerman pays them because we need him. And he fits guys that fit the team, fit the role. First line, second line, third line, fourth line, doesn't matter. He fits guys he signs guys that fits, and like I said, Kenny Holland would sign guys because he liked them, because they, went to dinner with him or whatever the deal was. And, obviously paying Justin Abdelkader that kind of money for 5 years was crazy, right? Good grind line player, not $5 million a year. Stupid. You don't pay guys like that $5 million a year. And so, like, a lot of those decisions are gone, and we're seeing the effects of that. Like, this team is significantly better than when he took over. That's just a fact. But hopefully we can see some progress here. Because the last thing I want to do is see this city turn on Steve Yzerman. He's one of my favorite athletes of all time. So, as we're getting wrapped up here, I'm sure Brett has all kinds of trivia lined up. I'm sure he doesn't.
No,
but he's going to today. He's going to have one lined up. Because we got John on, so you got to give him a question. You got to give him something hard. In the meantime, John, you got any trivia for Brett since he's so damn good at it all the time?
I did see one the other day that, do you know which NFL player was drafted by the Tigers?
Which NFL player? Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, it was Mahomes.
Yeah,
that was kind of wild. He pretty much I watched the interview with him, or whatever, and he said that he like threw a number out there, knowing full well that like they're not going to pay me.
Right. Well, and I think it worked out okay for him. I'd say he did pretty good for himself.
It's crazy how many NFL players were drafted into the MLB.
Yeah,
there's a ton of them.
Yeah, but the MLB draft system is so crazy. I don't even fully understand.
Well, there's quite
drafts.
A few like in the top 5 rounds.
Yeah. Well, how many rounds they got? Like 50? Like it's
yeah. If you
nuts.
played high school baseball, you got drafted in the MLB.
No kidding. It's like, just a gimme. But then don't forget, like, we got a rule 5, 12, 50, 60 draft, and then if you don't keep him, he goes back home. And I don't know. It's interesting for sure. But you got any trivia for him? Nothing at all? Not prepared. Okay. All right. I guess that wraps her up then, because Brett's got nothing. That's just jot this one down, folks. Brett's got no trivia tonight, so he lost. That's a loss on the board for Brett. It's a win for me just for watching. It is. It has to be. It's kind of fun that way. But John, we appreciate you coming on the show. Really appreciate you, giving some insight, and always a pleasure to talk for you, man. Always nice to hear from you, man.
Yeah, so glad I could finally make it. Have our schedules line up so we can make this happen. It's been a good time.
Good, man. Glad you like it, and hopefully, as the sports seasons progress here, you'll be able to come out, on more of a live set and come hang out and enjoy it, kind of in person. I think it'll be a good time, man. Mm-hmm. So again, happy to have you on, man.
Yeah, thanks so much, John.
Appreciate it, guys.
No problem.
Have yourself a great night.
Thank you.